of them had his name. None of them carried his presence. And yet, they were his blood. Later that night, when he got home, he couldn't sleep. He stared at his empty apartment. His fridge hummed in the background. His phone was silent. No wife. No child. No noise. Just the echoes of children's laughter that didn't belong to him. He picked up a baby photo of Elijah that he had taken during a birthday party. He zoomed in on the eyes. His own eyes. And something inside him cracked. Over the next few weeks, Daniel's feelings grew darker. Jealousy, pain, and a heavy sense of being used kept piling up. He avoided visits. Stopped picking calls from Tolar. Ignored Mark's messages. But his thoughts didn't stop. How did I end up giving away my children? He kept asking himself. One evening, he stood in front of his bathroom mirror and whispered to himself, "They're mine. I can't just donate my children and pretend they don't exist." And that's when the plan began to form. It started with simple things. He called Tolar. Pretended everything was fine. Asked if he could take Elijah to the park. Tolar hesitated, but Mark had always said Elijah should know his uncle. So she agreed. He brought the boy back after 3 hours, smiling. But that day did something to him. Holding Elijah's hand, listening to him talk, he saw his own face in that child. He saw his own laugh. His walk. A few days later, he did the same with Sarah. And the more time he spent with them, the more he felt something change. Tolar noticed the shift too. Daniel was asking more questions. Showing up more often. Taking more photos. Talking to the kids like he was preparing them for something deeper. She told Mark about it. "He's been coming around more," she said. Mark didn't look up. "They're his kids, Tolar. What do you expect?" "I don't know. It's like he wants more than visits." Mark finally looked at her. "And if he does? I don't want him to take them." Mark gave a dry laugh. "You don't want him to take his own children?" "They're ours too," she said, voice cracking. Mark stared at her. "No, Tolar. They're yours and his. I'm just the guy who paid the price." A week later, Daniel called Mark directly. They met at a small cafe near the mechanic shop. Daniel didn't waste time. "I want to be more involved in their lives," he said. Mark sipped his coffee slowly. "What does that mean?" "I want joint custody. I want them to know who I really am." Mark stared at him. "We had an agreement. That was before I knew what it would feel like to watch my kids grow up calling someone else dad. Mark placed his cup down. "So you want to rip my home apart?" "I want my blood to know me." Mark shook his head. "You didn't give them up. You gave me a life. You made me a father." Daniel leaned in. "Yeah, and now I regret it." They sat in silence. Then Daniel said something Mark wasn't expecting. "If you don't give me access, I'll go to court." Mark hadn't slept properly in weeks. He paced the living room most nights, staring at the ceiling, checking the window every hour, listening for car sounds that weren't coming. He barely ate. Barely spoke. And when he did speak, his voice had lost its strength. Tolar tried to comfort him, but he was drifting away mentally, emotionally, even physically. Daniel's last words at the cafe haunted him. "If you don't give me access, I'll go to court." And Mark knew if it got to that point, it would all come crashing down. He called a lawyer. The man explained things very clearly. "Mr. Mark, if this goes to court, they'll definitely ask for DNA tests," he said. "And once the truth comes out that you're not the biological father, well, you could lose full rights to the children." Mark sat there, frozen. "But I raised them. I bathed them. I carried them when they cried." The lawyer gave a small nod. "I understand that. But the law follows biology. Unless you adopted them legally, there's not much protection for you." Mark's hands trembled. "So just like that, they can be taken from me?" "I'm afraid so." He didn't tell Tolar about the lawyer. He just sat at the edge of the bed, quietly. She was feeding Sarah, now a bubbly toddler full of giggles and sharp teeth. Elijah was coloring on the floor with crayons, humming to himself. And Mark was falling apart inside. A week later, Daniel came to the house. He didn't knock gently. He didn't bring gifts or wear a fake smile. He came with a plan. I've thought about it, he said to Tola in the living room. I won't go to court. But I want them with me. Tola stood still. You can't take them. Daniel looked her straight in the eyes. I will take them. They're my blood. You gave them to me. Now let me raise them. Mark came out from the hallway. His face was tired. His voice weak. You're doing this to hurt me. Daniel turned. No, Mark. I'm doing this because I'm tired of watching someone else play father while I live alone. You agreed. Mark shouted. You said it was for me. For us. For family. And now I've changed my mind, Daniel said calmly. It's not your fault you can't have kids, but that doesn't mean I have to spend my life watching mine grow up from a distance. Tola stepped in between them. Please. Don't do this. I've made up my mind. By the end of the week, Daniel came back with a lawyer and a signed agreement that Tola had quietly helped draft. It allowed the children to spend weekdays with Daniel and weekends with her. Mark didn't sign it. He sat on the stairs that day, head in his hands, as Daniel packed a small bag for each child. Tola cried the entire time. Elijah didn't understand what was happening. Sarah just clapped when she saw Daniel, calling him Uncle Dan. They didn't know they were being taken away. Mark watched as they got into the car, the door shut, and the engine started. As the car pulled away, he whispered, "That's the end of me." The house was quiet now. No toys on the floor. No baby cries. No little footsteps. Just silence. Mark walked into Elijah's old room. The bed was still unmade. A small teddy bear lay in the corner. He sat down and picked up a drawing Elijah had made. It was a stick figure family, a smiling man, a woman, a boy, and a girl. 4 of them. Mark had written his name above the figure with a big smile. Now, someone else would take that place. Over the next few days, Mark started acting differently. He gave away most of his clothes. He started writing long notes in his journal. He deleted all the baby videos from his phone but kept the photos. He cleaned the house top to bottom, even areas he hadn't touched in months. Tola noticed. She asked him what was going on. He just smiled weakly. I'm just tired. One morning, she woke up and found him gone. His phone was on the kitchen counter. His car was still outside. She waited an hour. Then 2. Then panic set in. By afternoon, the police came. They found him later that day, down by the abandoned bridge near the edge of town. He had left a note in his shirt pocket. It read, I thought I was strong enough to live without pride. I was wrong. I couldn't give you children. I couldn't stop you from needing someone else. I loved Elijah and Sarah more than life, but I was never really their father. I'm sorry, Tola. I failed you. Tell them I loved them every single day. Goodbye. The news shook everyone. Tola fainted when the police confirmed it. She stayed in the hospital for 2 nights, unable to eat or speak. Daniel came once, but she asked him to leave. She didn't blame him. But she couldn't look at him. Tola sat on the hospital bed, staring at the wall. She didn't speak much anymore. Her body had gotten weak, her skin pale. The doctors said she was sick, but deep inside, she knew the truth. Her heart was broken. And it was breaking more each day. After Mark died, her life slowly fell apart. Daniel didn't just take her children, he took her role as their mother. At first, she thought he needed time. Maybe he was still hurting, and maybe he'd come around. But no. He didn't. He changed everything. He stopped the children from calling her mom. He told them she was just a family friend. He never brought them around. He said too much contact would confuse them. Tola tried to explain. She begged. She cried. But Daniel didn't care. They're my kids, he said. And I'll raise them the way I want. She saw the children only a few times. The court gave her 1 hour, twice a month, in a supervised child center. That was all. At the first visit, Elijah barely looked at her. Sarah didn't call her anything. By the 3rd visit, Tola knew they were forgetting her. She left early that day and never went back. Back home, the house was too quiet. No laughter. No crying. No toys scattered across the floor. She would sit on Elijah's old bed and hold one of his tiny socks, pressing it against her face like it still had his scent. She slept on the couch most nights. Ate once a day, maybe. Sometimes, not at all. When her friends called, she didn't answer. Jasmine came by once and found her lying on the floor, weak and cold. "Tola, you need help," she said, crying. But Tola didn't move. She just whispered, "They don't even call me mommy anymore." Her body started to give up. Doctors said her blood pressure was too high. Her heart was weak. She needed rest, food, medicine. But she didn't care. "The only thing I want is to see my kids," she told one nurse. "But they don't even remember me." The nurse gently held her hand and said, "You're dying of a broken heart." One evening, as the sun was setting, Tola asked for a piece of paper. Her hands were shaking, but she wrote 2 short letters. One for Elijah. One for Sarah. "Dear Elijah, when you were small, you used to hold my hand so tight whenever it rained. I wish I could hold your hand again. I want you to know you were always loved. From your mother, Tola." "Dear Sarah, you had my smile. I wish I got to braid your hair and watch you grow. Even when I couldn't be close, I still loved you every single day. Forever your mom, Tola." She folded the letters slowly and gave them to the nurse. "Please give these to Jasmine," she said. "She'll know what to do." That night, she passed away quietly. No screaming. No pain. Just silence. The nurses said she looked peaceful. But those who knew her, knew she didn't die from sickness. She died from a heart that was too tired of losing. At her funeral, only a few people showed up. No children. No Daniel. No flowers from the family. Just Jasmine, standing by the casket, holding the 2 letters close to her chest. "I'll make sure they get these one day," she whispered, crying. "I swear." Many years passed. When Elijah turned 18, he found the letter. It had been tucked away in Jasmine's old things. He read it over and over again. At first, he was confused. Then, slowly, it all came back. The warm voice. The gentle hands. The face he couldn't fully remember, but always saw in his dreams. And in that moment, with tears falling from his eyes, Elijah finally spoke the truth out loud. "She was my mother." Elijah had never felt peace since he read that letter. The handwriting was shaky. The words were gentle. But what broke him most were the final 3. "Love, Mom." That one line shattered everything he believed growing up. He waited days before saying anything. Then one evening, he sat at the dining table, quiet and tense. Sarah was scrolling through her phone when he finally spoke. "Have you ever felt like something wasn't right?" She looked up. "What do you mean?" He reached into his back pocket and unfolded the old, yellowing paper. "Read this." Sarah's face tightened as her eyes moved across the letter. "You had my smile. I wish I got to braid your hair and watch you grow. Even when I couldn't be close, I still loved you every single day. Forever your mom, Tola." Sarah's hands began to shake. "Tola," she whispered. "Who is Tola?" Elijah leaned forward. "We need to ask him. Now." That night, they confronted Daniel. He was watching TV with his feet up when Elijah walked in, letter in hand. "Is Tola our mother?" Elijah asked straight. Daniel's smile vanished. "I asked you a question," Elijah said again, firmer this time. Daniel's eyes darted toward the paper. His lips parted but no words came out. Sarah stood in the doorway, staring at him like a stranger. "You told us she was just a family friend. That she was no one." Daniel swallowed hard. She gave birth to you." "Yes. Why would you lie about that?" Elijah snapped. "Why would you take us from her?" Daniel's voice was quiet now, broken. "I didn't want to lose you." "You already did," Sarah whispered. "You just didn't notice." They left the house that same night and went straight to Jasmine's. The woman opened the door, stunned to see them at that hour. Her eyes widened when she saw the letter Elijah held up. "Where is she?" he asked, his voice low, trembling. Jasmine's eyes filled with tears. "You read it?" "Yes." Then you deserve to know everything. She sat them down and told them the truth. The real truth. From the beginning. How Mark and Tolar couldn't have kids. How Daniel was asked to help. How 2 children were born out of love and pain. And how Tolar died, quietly, alone, after Daniel took them away and erased her from their lives. She never stopped loving you, Jasmine said, tears rolling down her cheeks. Even when you stopped calling her mom. Elijah covered his face with his hands. Sarah sobbed into her palms. Please, Sarah begged, take us to her. The next morning, Jasmine took them to the cemetery. They stood in front of a small, quiet grave, hidden between 2 trees. The name on the stone was simple. Tolar Adeniyi. Loving heart. Silent strength. Forgotten too soon. Sarah dropped to her knees. Elijah stood frozen, staring down at the name, his throat tight. Then the tears came. Both of them cried uncontrollably. Loud, deep sobs that came from a place far beyond pain. I'm so sorry, Mom, Elijah whispered. I didn't know. We didn't know. Sarah placed a bunch of fresh flowers beside the headstone. They took you from us, and we didn't even get to say goodbye. They sat beside the grave until the sun went down, refusing to leave. They had missed her life, but they weren't going to miss her again. From that day forward, Elijah and Sarah never went back to Daniel's house. They packed what was theirs and moved in with Jasmine. She took care of them, even though she was old. She fed them, loved them, and shared every photo, every voice note, and every memory she had of their mother. They clung to every piece. And slowly, through Jasmine, they began to feel close to Tolar again. Daniel, however, faded away. After Elijah and Sarah left, his house became quiet. Not peaceful, just empty. No one visited. The neighbors avoided him. People in town whispered. His business failed. His body grew weak. And no one came to help. He would sit outside his broken gate, staring at the road, hoping maybe they would forgive him. But they never did. One night, during heavy rain, he collapsed beside a gutter near his house. No one found him until days later, already cold, already gone. There was no funeral. No burial. No name on a headstone. His body was removed by the city like forgotten trash. And that was the price he paid for the lies, the pride, and the love he stole. Years passed. Elijah and Sarah grew into kind, thoughtful adults. They never stopped visiting their mother's grave. Every birthday, every anniversary, every year, they brought fresh flowers and new letters. They'd sit on the grass and tell her about their jobs, their dreams, the little things they wished she could see. I hope you're proud of us, Sarah would say. And Elijah always added one last thing. We never stopped thinking of you, Mom. And we never will. The end. And she was always their mother.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and hit that subscribe button so you'll be the first to know when we drop something new. Bye. See you on my next one.